Right, as you can see, I'm now wearing a pink hat, so I'm obviously a girl. I'm a man presenting a feminine thing, pretty low. I didn't put a lot of effort in. I haven't got any makeup on, which sucks, this is like a no makeup selfie. Yeah? I know a lot of girls that don't wear a lot of makeup. They're no less girls. That's why I have the pink hat on. If I didn't have the pink hat on, you wouldn't know I'm a girl. What am I critical in towards the trans phenomenon? It's so complicated. I don't know where to start. I've been critical of it and I've been in support of it. And you might call that being on the fence, but I'm not. I'm against the over-politicization of issues. I'm against permanent modification. That's why I don't have any tattoos. I've got one tattoo on my back. Now, I'm not against anyone who has tattoos. I would just highly recommend that people don't cover themselves in tattoos and expose themselves to all those potential risks. And that's not discrimination. It's advice. It's life advice. If I have just fought against a pharmaceutical cult that I was born into successfully, I wouldn't have done that if I was exposed to hormone blockers or any of these medications, because it's just the same cult. It's just a different tool. It's the same thing. I wouldn't have been able to do it. But then, ironically, very strangely, the hyper-masculine approach wouldn't have worked either. It would have put me in jail. And so you'll find there just is a middle ground. Men have been feminizing themselves for a lot longer than Fox News or CNN or even like newspapers. Men have been presenting feminine identities because it's more effective. My approach wasn't one of a conquering warlord. I spoke to a video camera. It's funny when I get this used against me by my children's stepdad. He's like, oh, you're a keyboard warrior. It's like, yeah. Yeah, our entire system was built by fucking keyboard warriors before there were keyboards, mate. It's called civilization. It's very old. Look at the statues in Greece or even in Egypt. Men have been feminizing themselves for a long time. It doesn't mean that they're women, that they're biologically women. We do need to maintain separate identities because I think at the core of it, I can be a man. I choose to present feminine and I choose to limit the benefits that perhaps a large masculine presentation would allow me to use and would hinder me. And I think we're getting to a society, to a level of civilization that actually, with the exception of very rare cases like Hollywood movie stars or professional fighters or professional athletes, the ultra-masculine presentation is a hindrance. Now that upsets me because I'm a man. Do you know what I mean? I'm a man. I can't present as a man. It leaves me confused. If I couldn't look back in history and see examples for thousands of years of this, then I would feel very concerned. But what we have here is just a visual virus. It's a visual feedback loop. Women still desire an ultra-masculine figure because there's millions of years where that figure did have a place in society like lots of places in society, to thrive. Now, the introduction of hormone replacement therapies into this world in the form of steroids, and we get Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's okay. He's a performer. His steroid use is the same as me putting eyeliner on. It's a visual manipulation of his body to provide entertainment. Mine isn't to provide entertainment. It's a tool that I use. I could quite easily pump up, you know what I mean, and stand next to Chris Hemsworth, give me with steroids, give me a year, probably less. I don't really know. I didn't like the one time that I used steroids. I didn't like. No, I'll rephrase. I did like. It made me an extremely masculine man. I've already had most of my issues in my life came from fucking testosterone. You know what I mean? They came from pursuing women and being horny and being violent and being aggressive and being so. At my age, this is the first time I'm going to say it, at my age, it's not worth it. It doesn't help me in anything. But that doesn't mean that I'm neglecting my physical body. I'm just working on different things. I work on movement and efficiency and balance and speed. Yeah. And I'm working on communication between my body parts. And I can tell that I'm just scratching the surface of what this vehicle that I walk around in is capable of in a different speed. And freed from the perception that it's the circumference of my arms. Something like I look back at videos now and I'm like, oh, your arms are really skinny. And that's not true. My arms are not skinny. My arms are my arms. I can make them bigger and I can make them smaller. But they've never worked better in my life than they work now. Because they're balanced. And that's the same as this. I'm presenting to everyone to try and explain something that's very complicated. So I feminize my appearance. Because if I over-masculinize my appearance, it would be offensive to a significant portion of people. And so we get down to the trans thing. There's been this war. And that's because those individuals were used because they were the mascots for a new concept of pharmaceutical drug. Unknowing. A lot of them children. A lot of them with issues like autism and things like that. It's utter abuse. The reason they didn't care is because they've been doing it for a long time. And they use the same techniques. Now, it gets really weird. If you're a heavily autistic person, right, in 2025, and you've got behavioural issues and things like that, are you better being feminised? Will you be treated better being feminised? And the unfortunate answer is almost certainly. I've seen what this society does to men in the shadows, in the places you don't want to look. I've seen it. I've seen what my own masculine thing has done to myself. And done to others, people around me's perception of me. It's going to take a lot to break that glass where our fucking berserker men are going to be effective in any battlefield on Earth. But we still need them there. Yeah? But we need the balance. And the balance is this trans thing. The trans thing, the word, almost needs to be put on the shelf and not used. We're all just people. a lot of what this trans thing is, if you get away from the mutilation and the hormones, although the hormones are, let me just put that there and I'll come back to it, considering I don't have any, I've only got experience on one side of that hormone issue. But a lot of it's just fashion, and it's stupid to hate someone based on fashion. And I think the elevated kind of level of confidence was spurred on by the fact that they had some of the largest organised criminal drug distribution businesses fully in support of them, and an entire population activated to mob mentality. And considering they're experimenting with the feminine archetype can be kind of pretty full on when they're, I've seen women cheer on men to get bashed. I've seen women laughing at men being attacked. I've seen women create conflict all my life. I've been the victim of it. And so to see men practicing their womanhood and creating the same effect is not a surprise to me. But we don't fix this by retaliating from the masculine space. And this is a message straight to Donald Trump. You want to fix the over saturation of this trans concept, especially its most negative effects. You dilute it. And you've already started, I think. You got YMCA playing and you're dancing with a sword and thing. You're a genius. You're a very smart person. And today's Wednesday, right? Why don't we make Friday in the White House casual Friday? Yeah. Casual fancy dress Friday. Well, we all wear our pink hat. We all wear our little frock. We all wear our stockings. We all wear our high heels. We all wear everything. Because we've all done it. Yeah. We just didn't militarize our activities. Almost every guy I know has worn a dress or a G-string or a bikini or a frock or a frilly tutu at some point in their life because it's fucking fun, yeah? It's fun, and now we all get to have fun on Fridays, on why can't I say that? On fancy dress Fridays in the White House. We dilute the problem. We don't attack the problem. And I can guarantee you it's fucking fun. It's amazingly fun. They're right. The drag queens of old had it right. They've been trying to tell us all. They're like, hey, chill out. Masculine shit's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get you into gang shit and get shot and get bashed and get all these things. And no matter how big and scary you are, your time will come. Come and play with us. Stop taking everything so seriously. Put some makeup on and mime to this fucking tune. That's what they've been doing. So we're not going to militarize. If Donald Trump, I guess, is not going to militarize against any type of trans movement or any type of, because there is no trans movement. You've been saying it the whole time. Every man is trans. It's just the level that they choose to. And the level that they choose to publicly present that. That's the real key, isn't it? Just like medical anonymity is a vital thing for an operational civilization, so is concepts like this. If a man prances around to Madonna in the comfort of his own home, he should feel no pressure to outwardly present that. And that's what this whole thing's about. Fancy Dress Friday. Fancy. It's fun. Yeah. But if every day was Fancy Dress Friday, at gunpoint, which is what's happening to American families and Canadian families and Australian families and families in the UK are attempted to be done. Like, if you don't permanently attach this fancy dress costume to your child, we're going to take them. What is that? It breaks all your own rules. These people are being exposed. Well, so you want to permanently expose them to that? All of it falls down because it's not real. If someone wants to go and pay, an adult wants to go and pay money to get some tits, and do you know what I mean? I've thought about it. Maybe life would be easier with tits. Then they can do it, I guess. But to remove working breasts of children, that is a symptom of a far bigger problem, because just like I have feminized myself, women are feeling the need to masculinize themselves in order to be heard and in order to protect themselves from the prying eyes of the male gaze. Not the male gaze. Male gaze couldn't care less about young women's tits. But the male gaze we've become accustomed to as men with pornography. If that is making women feel like they need to permanently destroy their womanhood, then that is a symptom of a larger problem that is living in the masculine world. And that problem's been there for a long time. And the problem with the trans movement is that it's conflicting. We've got men that are wanting to feminize, that provides them with a far different thing. I can tell you, it's fun. Yeah, even if I had tits, I'm like, whoa. Like, I think that could be really fun. Far different than, and it does, like, I do feel the thing, if that's the weirdest thing, like, if, because I've been playing with, I walk down the street, I feel this weird thing, I'm like, I feel vulnerable, and I feel frightened. That's real too. Now, when it's being used empathetically, when men are using this to explore femininity and say, hey, I do feel a bit vulnerable. That's what's not being spoken about. I do. It feels vulnerable, honestly. It really does. And I guarantee you, the more I went down that, because I'm not presenting an over-the-top drag thing, and so it's not my personality, I wouldn't do that. I would explore it for real, but I wouldn't force it because I'm terrified of it. That gives me an insight into how women are and how they feel, and why, in the extreme cases, young women are feeling the need to remove any trace of their femininity because they're being looked at like they're a lolly shop. And I've been guilty of projecting that gaze upon them my entire life. And it's wrong. The continuation of this thing is wrong. The commoditization of women is wrong. The reason we are seeing destructive patterns coming from the feminine world is in response to this. Now, the same thing is happening to men. And in a lot of cases, it's far worse. What's happening to men? Sorry, I'm looking. This is like a small tornado outside. A willy-willy, we call them here. Isn't that funny? But it's not happening to all men. Almost. But there are ways to avoid it. As a woman, especially what would be perceived as an attractive woman, no, there's no way to escape it. You live in it. And the more I'm exposed to that, the more shocked I am at how much of a blind spot it was within my personhood, and how guilty I am of actually projecting out that negative thing. Now, I'm not a male feminist because I think women cause their fair share of problems in our world. But there needs to be exchanges. So we all need to get a bit more used to being told off by women, I think. And I do think women perhaps need to have something that is akin to me shaving, right? That's what men have been using. And this is a message to the women out there who feel like, they're sick of this shit and they want to project a masculine archetype. And they want to, fight back and let the guys know what they're seeing from their world. I just think removing hair from my body and cutting off operational breasts, they're on two completely different things. Putting makeup on and wearing a pink hat and cutting off breasts and using high-level testosterone hormones is very different. I don't know what impact feminine hormones would have on me now, and it's just not really something I'm interested in. I've always liked women that mature naturally, and so as whatever I am, a man / whatever, I'm quite willing to let nature take its course and give me that character of age, whatever gender stereotype I happen to be presenting. And so I'd just like to encourage any women that are feeling this, please think twice before permanently modifying your body. You removing your breasts, you know what I mean? It's like, it's been noted as a sacrifice. If you want to get to Joan of Arc, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, on the women's side, not on the men's side. Men's world's going on a whole lot different. The women's, we've heard you, and I agree. But please stop projecting this as a strategy. The suit, the pantsuit that is the uniform of choice for women politicians who have been trying to do that. Yeah, it probably doesn't quite cut it. The short hair doesn't quite cut it with the exposure that we're having to pornography and exploitation of women around the world. But if there's any way you can collectively come to another strategy to send your message out, instead of propping up a pharmaceutical industry and a destructive surgical mindset that is actually already, with the cosmetic surgery, been inflicted on women in the form of fake breasts and injections and fillers and plastic surgery and all these things. I've always found that, so right now I'm in my mum's house. It has air conditioning. It has the internet, and I can watch movies. It feels like I'm in Buckingham Palace. compared to where I've been in a hot shed, cut off from the world, eating staple things. I think the same effect is true for women. The Chris Hemsworths, the Brad Pitts, although they may be, very pervasive in our society, they're not running our society. The masculine attributes that you are assuming are leading this are not. They're internal. They have nothing to do with the visual. Falling into that visual trap as a woman, from the woman's perspective, is falling into the masculine world. Because you have a different set of circumstances. You need to be seen and you need to be listened to. So if you are an attractive woman and you're sick of being objectified, unfortunately, you're going to get a lot more attention by being as beautiful and as feminine as you can be and making the same point. And that's scary. Yeah. Because it's not a gang. It's not a gang of self-mutilating wannabe bikers or something like that. And all women of all shapes and sizes and ages are beautiful in my eyes and always have been, especially if there's a big dose of confidence to back it up. Because you've misunderstood men the same as we've misunderstood women. So if you want to be effective, you don't remove your breasts. We can't help but look at your breasts. So get them out and make your point anyway. Like I said, I wonder what my life would be like with a big set of tits. But I'm not going to probably do it. There's enough I'm pretty happy with what's already there. Because my imagination, it's all about just presenting and things. But no one's listening to aggressive, ultra-masculine men, except in the movies. And that doesn't work for anything significant in our world. So what you're projecting as a sacrifice, as a display, we've heard it. We've heard the outrage. And we've seen the projected promotion of mutilation of women by people claiming to protect women. And it just doesn't add up. Someone like Paris Hilton, who's fighting for women's, exposure of systemic abuse and things like that, who basically projects out this Barbie doll image, she's far more effective than wannabe bikers with crew cuts, mutilating children, young girls, and convincing them to disappear and to not utilize their feminine attributes and to be ashamed of them. That's cowering away. There is a balance in all things. There's a balance of gender in all of us. You kind of are right with all the things you've been saying. But to be ashamed of either extreme of that balance is not the right message to send. Examples of what you would call, or what you would refer to as butch, so like masculine women, I've always been more attracted to them. because they're confident. And they can push it pretty far. They can have short hair. They can have tattoos. They can swear like a pirate. But mutilation, removing organs, preventing reproduction at any point, not being aware enough that permanent decisions are permanent and that our minds change as we age, is disgraceful. How did we go from Angelina Jolie on every news channel with sympathy for having to remove her breast because of breast cancer to children being forcibly removed from their parents if their parents didn't support them doing the same? How did we do that in 15 years? I'll end by saying again, I've said this somewhere, it's buried in something I've said. I said, this pandemic we just experienced was not a pandemic. Like, we'd been promised, we said, because of our globalized world where everyone's moving around and all these things are moving around, we're going to be so exposed to a pandemic. That's our defense against pandemics. Pandemics of the past have been where regions of the earth that have never been exposed to each other get exposed. That is the story of our past. That is almost impossible nowadays. These viruses stay on surfaces and we're shipping things all over the world. We're shipping people all over the world constantly. That's not where the threat's coming from. The threat is from invasive, dangerous, conceptual ideas being shared and distributed at light speed and at peak scale. And that is what this mutilation cult has done. All standing on top of pharmaceutical drugs, ready and waiting. The same pharmaceutical drugs that were used on sex offenders in the past. A lot of those examples, say Alan Turing, who was exposed to these same drugs after being basically a war hero and inventing computing as we know it, was then drugged and killed himself because he was gay. These are the drugs. These are the same drugs that this computer system that he birthed has tried to distribute and done it at light speed with the power of computing, with no science on psychological and psychiatric theory that has never been confirmed and is on the same track as experimental things that have been in play now for 50 years that have led to catastrophic results. There's nothing noble about anything that's gone on in this world. The noble thing as a woman is to appear as a woman and speak anyway. And if I could do that as a man and it would be effective, which I have done, I've presented as a man the majority of what I've done, and it hasn't been effective. But one thing I can guarantee you about men is if the woman is presenting in a feminine way and she starts talking with confidence, people will listen. You need to bolster each other's confidence to speak. And there's never been a better time on earth to do that. Not all of you. If you feel exposed to the male gaze, there's things like clothes. Look at Billie Eilish. You reject it. It doesn't need to be permanent. I can't tell whether Billie Eilish has breasts under that jumper or whether she doesn't. Perfect strategy. Perfect strategy I've witnessed and seen in my own daughter, and I understand it. I don't fully understand. I understand it, and enough. I will never fully understand it. But the idea of her being able to recklessly remove her breasts and me not being able to prevent that is a bit like the discipline I've also not been allowed to use on my children. Even now in the most extreme of even just verbal discipline has been removed from my options to parent my children. And we look around at undisciplined masses and wonder why we live in this shithole. To round this off with like a nice little friendly story about cats, because I know that gay guys love cats. I remember I loved my cat when I was young. His name was Jellybean. I loved it. It was like it was my best friend almost, between my dog and my cat. Huge big cat called Jellybean. And I remember once I had a friend, a schoolmate, who was a little bit extreme. He had some kind of violent things going on, some weird stuff going on. And I remember he came to my house and I was like, oh, this is my cat. And he picked it up by the fucking neck, by its head, like this, and held it. He was a lot bigger than me as well. And there was nothing I could do. And I just could not understand why he was doing that. Why would you do that to an animal? I still don't understand it. There's lots of people I've encountered that have this thing. And that's what's going on with the children in this trans movement. Yeah? Same exact fucking thing. But now I'm a lot bigger. And I've got my pink hat on. And I'm ready to take action if I need to. Because anyone who hurts children is an enemy of mine. And the basic argument you're making is to protect the children from the words, we mutilate them. And we actually expose them to more words in that. We permanently scar them with this cult to appease our inability to project our grievances with the gifts and the attributes we have naturally been given. That is cowardice in the most extreme way there could ever be. There is no better description of cowardice. And the worst thing about women is it's like no one expects courage from women in this way. You will never play a male game as women by projecting as men. Because the men aren't fighting in the Colosseum to decide things that you're trying to change. The men that are responsible for the things you want changes in have already feminized themselves and have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. And they don't need to remove any organs to do that. because it's just fashion.